I say to my colleagues in the House all the time, no matter what title they have bestowed upon me, Speaker, Leader, Whip, there has been no greater honor for me than to stand on the House floor and say, I speak for the people of San Francisco. I have truly loved serving as your voice in Congress, and I've always honored the song of St. Francis, Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace, the anthem of our city. That is why I want you, my fellow San Franciscans, to be the first to know. I will not be seeking re-election to Congress.
This morning, the Speaker Emerita, the Representative Nancy Pelosi, the first and second and only female Speaker of the House, announced she will not be seeking re-election next year after serving nearly 40 years in what will be 40 years in Congress. TYT has had, a quixotic relationship with the Speaker over the years. So, Cenk, I suspect I know your 2 cents, but we'll have lots to say.
Yeah, down goes, all right, hold on. So we're going to talk about my former colleague, Shirkat Chakrabarti, who was running against her. Do I think that was part of it? A little bit. Do I think that Zohran Mamdani winning was a little bit of a part of this calculus? Yes. The incumbents for the first time feel vulnerable. In my lifetime, I don't think I've ever seen Democratic incumbents feel vulnerable. And so, in primaries. And so I think that this is a bellwether change. And yes, we'll debate Pelosi's career.
Yeah, I think Nancy Pelosi was always going to step down before she even knew Shirkat's name. But I just think the timing of this was 40 years in Congress, and that was it. But we'll get to that, and that doesn't really matter. We're talking about her career, what this will mean for the Democrats, why it happened. Nancy Pelosi is 85 years old. She was first elected to Congress in 1986, I guess. She started serving in 87. She served as a Speaker of the House following 2006 and the 2018 elections. Her announcement comes 2 days after she helped California Governor Gavin Newsom pass Proposition 50, which we now all know will redraw the state's congressional maps ahead of next year's midterm elections. According to a person familiar with fundraising efforts in that race, Pelosi herself raised tens of millions of dollars for Proposition 50. In her video announcing her retirement, a piece of which we just saw, she reflected on her many roles in the U.S. Congress.
For decades, I've cherished the privilege of representing our magnificent city in the United States Congress. It seems prophetic now that the slogan of my very first campaign in 1987 was, "A voice that will be heard." And it was you who made those words come true. It was the faith that you had placed in me and the latitude that you have given me that enabled me to shatter the marble ceiling and be the first woman Speaker of the House. As we go forward, my message to the city I love is this: San Francisco, know your power. We have made history, we have made progress, we have always led the way, and now we must continue to do so by remaining full participants in our democracy and fighting for the American ideals we hold dear.
So the Speaker leaves having, in 40 years, you get a lot done, especially when you become the Speaker of the House, a lot done for her own district, a lot done, as she said in her video, a lot done for the country. So here's some more from the Speaker Emerita.
It was an historic moment for our country, and it was momentous for our community, empowering me to bring home billions of dollars for our city and our state. With these resources, we have powered enormous progress for healthcare, from the fight against HIV/AIDS to the Affordable Care Act. For transportation, extending BART, electrifying Caltrain, creating the 3rd Street Light Rail and the Central Subway, and strengthening our iconic Golden Gate Bridge, all creating good-paying jobs. We can be proud of what we have accomplished, but there's always much more work to be done. Of course, San Francisco's impact is not confined to our city limits. The Affordable Care Act, Wall Street reform, human rights abroad, and so many other priorities all sprang from the vision, values, and voices of San Franciscans. Because of your trust, I was able to represent our city and our country around the world with patriotism and pride.
Yeah, she always hewed very closely to being the representative from San Francisco. And as she said there, none of it inaccurate that she, I mean, maybe romanticized, but not inaccurate that she did do a lot for the city. When you are in leadership, it's a lot easier to do that. When you're the speaker, even more so. She did also, on the Golden Gate Bridge, she put in those suicide barriers on the Golden Gate Bridge. She had those put in. She took the Presidio and turned it into a national park. So a lot was done for San Francisco, as she mentioned. I don't think, Cenk, we would have the Affordable Care Act in the same way. I don't think it would have passed the same without her having shepherded that through. And I think that's probably her biggest achievement as a member of Congress. Though she did have the Lilly Ledbetter Equal Pay Act, she had the Child Care and Paid Leave Act. She was also instrumental in human rights. And finally, she stood up to China. She went to China and held up signs to commemorate the people at Tiananmen Square. Like her first, maybe it was her second term in Congress, she put in environmental restrictions so that developers around the world had to abide by a certain set of environmental barriers, let's say. But I think, stepping away from that, I think that we saw, and I said this about Mitch McConnell too, we got to see Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell, who I think, forgetting what you think of their politics or their party or their personalities or anything, in terms of doing those jobs, they were both excellent at the job of both speaker and majority and minority leader in McConnell's case. I despise Mitch McConnell, but he was certainly pretty crafty at getting done what he wanted to do. I think the same for Pelosi. She was able to hold together her caucus against Donald Trump in that first term in ways that I don't think many leaders would. And of course, I can't speak for what, I'm not a woman, I don't have daughters, but I know that she inspired a lot of women to break that marble ceiling the way she did. A lot. There were 24 women in the U.S. House when she got there. Now, the U.S. House is 30% women. And so they're not all Democrats. They're not all there because of Pelosi. Some of them are there in spite of Pelosi. But I do think that her record in that regard is exceptional.
Yeah. So look, first of all, you got to give credit to her for breaking the glass ceiling, marble ceiling, etc. First female Speaker of the House, role model for people, showing that you can do it. No question, she gets a ton of credit for that. She gets credit for everything she did in San Francisco. The Presidio is beautiful, etc. I got no beef. And I don't want to speak too ill of the retired, because so I get on Pelosi's case a lot throughout the years, but that's because we're in the middle of a heated battle. And she always represented the establishment and was always against progressives. So I got every right to oppose her. She opposed us her entire career. But now that she's retiring, less relevant, right? So I don't do this out of spite, but out of, making sure that you all know what actually happened, right? So all the things that Michael said are true, but two things can be true at the same time, and context matters. And context actually, it doesn't help her in one way, but then at the end, I'll tell you about how it helps her in a different way. So when you look at the context, okay, so the one major bill was Obamacare, right? And Obamacare, they had the House, they had the White House, and they had the Senate sitting at one point in the beginning, if they heard 60 senators, filibuster proof, then 59 senators. So you really, if you say, hey man, my major accomplishment is passing a bill that, by the way, didn't go anywhere near all the way, didn't go to universal health care, didn't even go to a public option, but just mandated that you buy from private insurers, but made the system a little bit better. When I had 59 senators and had the House comfortably, and obviously she's the Speaker of the House, I want to be nice, but I just don't believe that's like some magnificent accomplishment.
It is an extraordinary, it is a historic, it is the biggest congressional legislative accomplishment that you've been alive for, I would say, but maybe not alive for, but certainly
it's one of the biggest. Yeah. But
and to do that,
such a low bar.
It's not a low bar. I mean, like we changed healthcare. She changed healthcare in America, along with President Obama, along with the people on the staff, along with members of Congress, and it didn't go far enough. It didn't do enough, but it took something, put it in place, and now no one in America wants it taken away. That is a rare and enduring thing to do.
So I'm giving her credit for that one bill, which I think was
monumental.
Stunningly easy to pass. Stunningly easy.
It wasn't easy to pass. It wasn't even easy to pass. I mean, it wasn't easy to pass because she had a caucus that was large but divided. She had pro-choice members of that caucus that didn't want to vote for it because of there wasn't enough for abortion.
Drug money, health insurance money. Okay.
Well, but wait. I mean, come on, Jake. I mean,
come on. You tell me.
She's the Speaker of the House, and they passed monumental health care. The Speaker gets credit for that.
Okay, I'm trying to give her.
It's never a low bar to change the way things are done in this country.
So what I dream about, Michael, is that an ally of mine that I think is really earnest and strong and wants to do it gets in a role like that. I really want to show the country what you can actually get done.
And that person would have a hard time doing that. I hope that happens for you. That person would have a hard time doing it. It would be hard because getting anything through Congress is difficult.
No, you break their legs politically and rhetorically. You say, here's the corrupt son of a bitch taking away your health care. Here's a corrupt son of a bitch who created higher drug prices. Right. Yes, that corrupt son of a bitch is in my own party, but not for long.
We have to talk about
because I'm going to definitely destroy his career for supporting corporate donors who are destroying your lives with these high drug prices. But of course, a Democratic in her era would never do that.
You have to talk about anybody's era when you're talking about it. I mean, it's the real politics of the time. It's a divided caucus, and it's. I mean,
okay. So hold on, I'm going to come to that. Okay, so
if you were saying you want to happens, fantastic. But that won't be under Nancy Pelosi's watch.
I'm getting to that. Yeah. Okay. So now, to the rest of her career, I mean, she mentioned only 3 things nationally. Wall Street reform. They did half a reform. The other half was so bad that they were going to put Paul Volcker's name on it, who was a conservative from back in the 1970s and 80s that ran the Fed. And by the end, he's like, no, it's so conservative and corporate and establishment, I don't want it. I don't want it. And then he accompanied it with a giant bailout of the bankers, including their bonuses, okay? And then she said, human rights abroad. And there's some truth to that. The things that Michael said are true. At the same time, when the Palestinians wanted some human rights, Nancy Pelosi didn't care about them at all. And she helped to send more money to crush them and to further this genocide. So human rights for some, but not for all. So in a 40-year career, you got one big bill passed when you had almost the entire deck stacked in your favor. And you got half or a quarter of Wall Street reform in 40 years.
Wait a second, you didn't just get one bill passed, and that wasn't her bill. She was the speaker then. There were, from TARP, from AIDS and HIV relief. AIDS and HIV relief is the model for countries around the world, and that was crafted. I mean, it does go to her being from San Francisco, obviously. It was crafted by Pelosi and Boxer, who was her colleague in the Congress at that time, went on to be a senator from California. So these are things that she did that have lasting and enduring, and how many members of Congress leave with legislation with their names on it? Nancy Pelosi isn't leaving with legislation. She's leaving having been speaker who shepherded these things through at a time that it was not easy to do that. She also she went up against George Bush big time with the Iraq War, was a foil to him, was somebody who had that Iraq War resolution and made sure that everybody was opposed to it and wasn't able to get it there. During the COVID relief, the Trump administration had to pull Steven Mnuchin out of negotiations with Nancy Pelosi because she was getting too much COVID relief. And the Trump people were like, we need to send somebody who isn't Steven Mnuchin. I'm just saying, this is her as a leader, this is her as a speaker. And that's the role of the job. That there isn't a Pelosi, the Pelosi Act, which, by the way, the Pelosi Act is what the Republicans want to put in to stop stock trading by any members of Congress. Well, Nancy Pelosi has supported that, and she supported.
Well, she didn't in the beginning. She only did when she got into the minority.
She did. Well, she started doing it in 2022 when it became an issue, and she said that there was bipartisan effort, and she was behind it. And then she said, even if it's called the Pelosi Act, I don't care. I'm for it. No, look, she's a rich housewife from San Francisco. Her husband is a stock trader. I'm not saying that everything about her is squeaky clean in that regard.
No, I got you. And you don't mean housewife in a derisive way. You're just saying
that's where she started.
Her husband is really wealthy finance guy.
Right,
I got
it. She raised 5 kids, and she was home being a housewife until she entered politics. So that's all I'm saying.
So listen, guys, I'm really glad that Michael's here today so that you could hear the full conversation and the full context. And so you've gotten both sides of it, you get it. And look, only last two things I'll add is, look, did she fight progressives throughout? She did. And so when the Green New Deal came about, she said, oh, it's the green dream or whatever. When Medicare for All came around, she said, oh, I mean, I've got a poster for universal health care from the 1960s in my basement, where she apparently buried it, right? But on the other hand, everything Michael's saying is also true. Like, it's not a little thing that she made people address AIDS at a critical time, right? So fair is fair. Now, did she raise about $1 billion in campaign donations and disperse that to other Democrats in the House? Yes. Is that a good thing? No.
I think much more than that. But
yeah, more than $1 billion.
Well, it's not a good thing that you have to do it. It's a good thing that she did it.
Which gets me to my last point, right? So I hate that kind of corruption. And then did those people then control those Democrats? And is that why we haven't passed a lot of bills? Yes, I think so. But to Michael's point, historical context matters. And what I realized recently, Michael, is that, yeah, I am a little too tough on these guys. And so the reason is, I keep assuming that they can see the things that I see. That they see it as clearly as we all do, and that they could act in the same way that we do. But they can't. The historical context of her era, which is now just ending, right, is that money ruled all of Washington. So if you didn't play that game, you were going to be a miracle like AOC winning. You were going to be a gadfly for a long time like Bernie Sanders was. So this wave of progressivism and populism is just now starting to become ascendant. And in her era, if you didn't raise a lot of money, you weren't going to be a relevant player. And so she played the game as it was. I kept wishing that she could play the new game and better to get us more Democratic policies, more wins. But from that era, that's all we had. We had Mitch McConnell and we had Pelosi and we had all these guys raising infinite amount of money from corporations, et cetera. And so she had to match Mitch McConnell, and she did. I don't think that makes her evil. I also don't think that makes her good. I think it makes her a product of her time. And at the end, the only thing that anybody will remember, if we're being honest, is that she was the first female speaker of the House. And that's not a small thing. That is a historic accomplishment.
And she tore up Donald Trump's speech.
She did do that as well. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.